Sometimes I'm asked, after being in this business for almost 50 years, what I have learned. Well, one thing that I have learned is to check and recheck. Wasn't quite that important when I first started, but much more recently, with all discussion of alternative facts and misinformation and disinformation, it has become of prime importance. And I tell you why I'm talking about this now. Perhaps the most famous molecular model in history is this one, the model of DNA, the molecule that is said to be the blueprint of life because it's found in the nucleus of every cell and basically directs all of the body's activity. Well, the molecular structure of this was discovered by James Watson and Francis Crick. It was a monumental discovery published in 1953. And the story is that the structure, which looks like a spiral staircase, came to Watson in a dream. They had been thinking of the structure of DNA. In fact, they had been in a hot race with Linus Pauling at California Institute of Technology to determine the structure of DNA, and they were kind of mystified. And then Watson had the dream of the staircase. It was spiral, and this was the basis of the structure. That's a story I told many times giving a lecture. But given all the plethora of alternative facts and misinformation, I thought maybe, I should really check into this story. So I did. I looked at Watson's TED Talk, which was very, very good, describing the history of discovery of DNA, not a mention of the dream. I thought for sure it would be there. And then I picked up his classic book about DNA, which I had read many years ago, and I went over it in detail. I did a search for the word dream. It just isn't there. So I think someone just dreamed up that story to make the discovery of DNA more interesting. The real magic and discovery of DNA was this famous photograph taken with X-ray equipment of a crystal of DNA by Rosalind Franklin. And this, of course, doesn't mean anything to me, but it does mean a whole lot to crystallographers. This was the key to determining the structure of DNA. It had nothing to do with a dream. And then I thought I'd better look into another story that I had been telling. And that was one about Otto Lowy, who also supposedly had a dream in which he discovered neurotransmitters, the chemicals that transmit messages in the nervous system. And that dream had to do with frogs, two frogs. And the classic experiment, Otto Lowy took the heart of a frog, and it had still the vagus nerve attached. He stimulated that nerve with electricity to make the frog's heart beat. He poured a solution over it. He collected the solution, and he poured that solution over the heart of another frog that had been removed by dissection, and that heart also started to beat. That was amazing. It had to be some sort of chemical message that was being transmitted. And that indeed was the discovery of neurotransmitter. He had said, or at least books and articles about him said that he had come to this in a dream. He quickly got up, went to the laboratory, and carried out the experiment. Well, I looked at the original documentation, and I went to the horse's mouth, as it were. I looked up his own description, and it really wasn't a dream. He had woken up in the middle of the night. He had an idea. He scrawled it down on a piece of paper. When he woke up in the morning, he couldn't read his own scrawl. And the next night, he was still awake thinking about this. And the idea came back to him again. And then he went to the lab and did the classic experiment. So it wasn't really a dream. He was lying awake at night thinking about these things, as many of us do. So neither the discovery of DNA nor neurotransmitters was generated by a dream, but they make interesting stories. Sometimes we say that a story is too good to check, but I still like to check. And now I have, I think, a better story to tell.